Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I'm 𝒃𝒂𝒄𝒌 and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out, and take action towards the next level of your life. I interview leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week and make sure you subscribe to the podcast to get the episodes as soon as they are released. In today's show, I am delighted to speak with Niiamah Ashong. Niiamah, you are originally from Ghana, West Africa, and at 7 years old it became very clear to you that you did not fit in, as you say, being in your neighborhood just outside of Camden, New Jersey in the USA. You spent many years holding back, hiding who you truly were, in order not to be outed as different, until you realize that you are an outlier, and that has proven to be your biggest strength. You are a coach passionate about bringing opposites together and helping others embrace their unique talents so that they can create freedom of time and expression, financial abundance, and massive impact. Niiamah, it's my absolute joy to speak with you today.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here as well. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. One thing I should say is my parents are from Ghana. I was actually born in the US, so I'm first generation out of Ghana, and that feels important to bring in from the back because that's helped shape the journey that I've been on.
Absolutely, and let's actually start with this journey and this past of yours and that realization that you were feeling like an outsider, being an African American. So can you paint a picture for me and for the listener to who maybe doesn't realize what you mean?
Yeah, I appreciate that. What I'm doing right now is making sure that I'm seeing the picture clearly, and removing the overall stories that are associated with it, with what is really my story. Mm-hmm. So my story, my version of this here has been, I grew up in southern New Jersey. I am the first generation born of a set of parents who came from Ghana, West Africa. And one of the first memories I have around really understanding who I was a conversation that my parents sat me down for and said, hey, just so you know, you are African American and you're not Black. And the reason for this here is that you have parents that have come straight from Ghana. You know your history, you know your roots, and there's a different history that Black Americans have. And this was an important thing because where I grew up when I was growing up, it was right outside of Camden, New Jersey. It was the 5th most dangerous city in America at the time, and so there were different things that my parents were able to help me see to kind of differentiate myself and say, hey, if you're looking for examples, if you're looking around you, if you're looking at the people on the street, if you're looking at the examples that pop culture has shown you about what a Black male is, and the ways that the choices of how Black men are portrayed in the media or on the news and the types of stories that get accentuated, like that isn't you. You might look like them, but that isn't you. So that was fine for me, but I think that like where I grew up, there was this element of really knowing that that I wasn't really in place. I wasn't really around in place. I was in a gifted program when I was young, and so it took me out of the one of the elementary schools where there are a lot of people who look like me, and I moved into another program in another school where I was one of the few African Americans in there. For the first 2 years, I was the only African American in that program, and I think that's this is where I want to make sure that I'm staying true to my story. What that brought up for me was a level of separation at like the ages of like 6 to 8 years old, and a feeling of like, oh, this is like I'm not really one of them. I'm not really supposed to be here. And as young children tend to do, they have a level of honesty that I actually quite admire. They may not have the tact to go along with it, but they have a level of honesty that is true. And there was this realization that I was amongst everyone, and yet I didn't really fit in, right? And what's interesting about that for me, and it's hard because like now I'm looking at this decades later, trying to make sense of my young child brain at the time. But I do know that there is a sense of like, I'm going to be alone. I don't really fit in with what's going on here. And I made a decision at a very young age to actually not try and fit in. And I think this is important because my version of being like growing up as an African-American young man was really about fitting out. And I really haven't heard anyone else talk about fitting out, but for me, that's what it is. It's been this idea of actually, I'm going to be able to be amongst you all because I'm not like you all, but not from a place of strength, but more from a place of, oh, you need a funny person who is, non-threatening, that will, if you're gonna separate me from others, let it be on my choice. I was a class clown. I did everything I could to be that guy, but every group needed of that guy, and so I could fill the role of that guy. And I think that's important because as I'm unpacking this here, the thing for me was, in a lot of different ways growing up here, I made it a point to find a way to be outrageous enough to have my own space. I also served as and I don't think this is the way that people held it, but I was one of the only Black people in the things that I was doing, African American. So in a lot of ways, I ended up being what was referred to at the time as a token. It's like I was in the subset at representing more than just myself. And so that's let me start there. I've never told this story this way. I know the one thing that I came in here was to say, I'm going to be honest and authentic with you in this place here. I'm excited to see where the rest of the story goes, and how it plays out in this conversation. But I'm going to pause there for now, and see what comes up for you.
Sure, I appreciate what you're telling me, and I was not sure of where this would lead either, because it's a rather, for my podcast about personal development, it's not, one mainstream topic, but I'm sure that there are two things. First, I'm sure that people will relate, because it could be the skin color, it could be other factors, could be nationality or religion or whatever, but people will feel like they are different, or they are made to feel different, especially in a child. It's so impressionable if other children see them as different. That's one thing. The other thing was that my motto of the podcast, and I say that like the outro phrase every time, is stand out, don't fit in. So, and I have personal experience of myself, and when I was reading some things about your story, I found that very relatable, that you tried to not show your opinion, just keep things to yourself so that you wouldn't, provoke any responses and reactions. And God knows I have been like that, not for any obvious external difference as yourself, but for my own internal reasons. But still, I was keeping things to myself, not expressing who I truly was. And it took me a very long time to realize that I was doing a disservice to myself, to others. And anyway, that was not my mission and my purpose and my duty, if you want, as a human being, just keeping things to myself and not showing who I am. So that was, my observation on what you said right now.
I'm really happy you brought that up. Because I think I bring up the external parts of this all here because it's part of my journey of this year, and I'm still in the process of unpacking it. But we talk about personal development mastery here, and what I have discovered is one of the things I've been listening to podcasts. I've been going through, I've done the Tony Robbins. I've done I've been immersed in the personal development, and what I had missed was in my attempt to become more and more productive, in my attempt to keep listening and keep trying to discover something else out there that will give me this next nugget of information as to how I can be just a little bit better. I missed like that my foundation, my core foundation was off, and that I was becoming better. I was becoming the person I was becoming better, but I wasn't becoming more me along the way. And so there's these elements here that really like play out for me. It's not that I didn't hold back my opinions. I was afraid to even have them, and it was much better to be the person who I stayed ignorant. I didn't want to know about any current events. I didn't want to know about anything that could have any type of like divisiveness or confrontation, and I mean, let's be real here. We're talking personal development mastery, not personal development like introduction, right? Mastery. Personal development, I find to be like one of the most confrontational activities that you can take on. And you're confronted like the worst adversary, which is there's this element of personal development being that place where it's incredibly confrontational and you're confronting yourself in the matter, in the midst of it all. So I think that I bring this up because I think that it is really like, yes, it is relatable, but I also feel like it's a part of the journey of personal development that that if it isn't addressed, we continue building to try and get better and better and better. When at for me, what has really led to the most accelerated growth in my life has been to stop trying to take on more and to actually just allow more of who I am to come out. That has been the single greatest accelerant of my journey by far. I'm curious for you where that goes. But like, it just, when you said it, it just really came true to me. I'm like, yeah, this is why this feels super relevant for me.
Thank you for directing actually the conversation to this, and I will say two things. One is in terms of the controversy of the personal development. Development implies that you're building outwards. But I think it's not necessarily so. Sometimes it's like, the sculptor just removes pieces of the marble to reveal what's truly inside. And I think in some sense, personal development is that, really revealing who you truly are and you're using, of course, the tools, the techniques to remove the unnecessary or the acquired things that you have picked up and they do not serve you or your environment or humanity, if you want. And the other thing, for me, it took me a very long time to transform or start this transformational journey. I mean, it's better late than never, but I went into my 40s while being that person that was trying to fit in and not showing who I truly was because of fear of criticism and, all these things. So it's great. I know that it's picking up lots of speed, and I'm just mentioning that as, as an observation. I wanted to ask you, when did you have that? Was it a transformational moment, a time, a period, like a milestone? What happened and you decided that that's not really who I want to be? I want to do something else, something different.
Yeah. So it wasn't just one moment, but there were a few key turning points along the way.
Yeah.
Look, we had that 6-7 6-7-year-old there who decided to fit out. That 6-7-year-old became a 14-year-old who got the nickname Nemo, and went around for 20 years of his life going by that nickname of Nemo. When I met people, I was calling myself Nemo. I remember even being on this self and personal development journey and being like, hey, everyone, I have to own who I am. My name is Niiamah Ashong. My website, it's Niiamah Ashong. Everything is Niiamah Ashong. Like, this is who I am. I am Nemo. I say all that there because that is juxtaposed with this element of about 4 years ago, sitting down and watching a documentary. And the documentary was called White Like Me. It was shown during Black History Month at the company that I was working for. And my job there was to really foster the collective and connective tissue of the culture across the organization. So we had 24 different offices across multiple continents. It's like, how do we help the entire organization work and feel as one unit, even though we all come from different backgrounds and have different expertise that we're bringing? And one of the ways that I did is I was supporting the affinity groups that were there. And they had a showing of a documentary called White Like Me. And during it, this is what it feels there's like an acidic taste in my mouth when I say it. So I know that this is the direction that I have to go in. I watched that movie, which was made by a white man to actually talk to other white men and say, hey, there's this thing called systemic and institutionalized racism. And like, here goes how it actually has come to be. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, it was really interesting because it's not like I hadn't heard it in the past. It wasn't like my parents hadn't talked to me about it and so on and so forth. But it was the first time that I actually really just started to believe that, oh, wait, I think I'm not supposed to be here. But like, actually, the system, the game, everything has been stacked against me being here. I'm really not supposed to be here. See, I was an actuary, or retirement actuarial consultant working at a consulting company. And I got called in to do a focus group. And they said, hey, we're calling you in because 2 to 3% of all actuaries are African-American in the US, right?
2 to 3%.
2 to 3%.
Okay.
Then I was working in tech. And that number, like they would say 2 to 3% of all people working in tech in America right now are African-American. And I had been a part of this like 2 to 3% club. And I had thought like, oh, okay, yeah, this is my opportunity. I'm going to like be here. And because it's only 2 to 3%, I'll be one of the ones that are successful. Watching that documentary really helped me really see something where it's like, hold on, there's only 2 to 3% here. And for some reason, somehow I've consistently been that person from the time that I was 6 years old and they moved me into the gifted program in elementary school to go into my Ivy League education, to working at a top 4 consulting company, to making a career change, complete change from going down a retirement actuarial path to moving in 2 months to like my very next job, a job on a coveted learning and development team focusing on company culture and employee experience right off the bat. All these things were these small little 2 to 3% moves. And when I watched that documentary, it made me realize, hold on, I'm really not supposed to be here. And there are other people, and this is the thing, this is the thing that gets me. There are other people who want to be here, who actively have like thought to themselves, how can I get to this space? You know, and they're telling me 97 and 98% of those people wouldn't be able to be a part of this here. You're telling me that for some reason, there's something that I've done that's allowed me to consistently, to not only be in these spaces, but to thrive in these spaces, right? And so I asked myself the question, I said, well, what is it? What is it that allows me, Nemo, to be able to do this? And the answer that came to me was like, well, I've always just been me. I haven't taken on the fact of being a Black person. Like when my parents would tell me, you got this because or you didn't get it because you're Black. Like I wasn't taking that on as part of my identity. And I was like, I just navigated life as me. I say all of this here because it was an incredible aha, and it set me down this path that I'm on, right? It was really important. and I missed something. I missed something completely. I was like, I've been able to be successful because I've been me. But ironically, I had never actually spent the time actually being myself. You know, I asked myself that question as Nemo. I wasn't born Nemo. I was born Niiamah Ashong. I go by Niiamah. That's like the name that my parents have called me my entire life. Niiamah, you know? But I was going by Nemo. And for some reason, I didn't recognize the disconnect. I said, oh, I can be who I want to be. And that person is a jolly person that makes people feel good, that never like rocks the boat, that doesn't really have any opinions, all this stuff. And I started going down my own like personal development journey, actually through a professional development journey. I said, I want to be a coach. And the more and more I went down coaching, the more I realized how out of integrity I was with what I had thought I was. And that leads me that's where like the journey continued. I remember this one moment where I walked into a room. In the first 30 minutes, the leader of the room, I had called my name twice. They're like, Nemo, oh, great job. And I raised my hand to say something like, oh, Nemo again. And they asked me a question. They said, what was your dark side? They asked me about some shadow, something that I felt, something that I felt it was a shadow in my life. I answered the question, Agi, and I felt great. In the process of sitting down in like the 5 foot from like the standing up to the ground, my entire life changed, because in that process, I heard this thought go through my mind. Hey, you've already, in the first 30 minutes, you've been seen twice. You need to like hold off, give other people a chance. Like it's not, you're taking up way too much space, right? Wait 2 days. And that's when I was like, oh, wait, hold on. That's the real shadow. That's the real shadow of my life. That can I be seen? Can I take up space? You know, can I actually play this out? And that's when I started to like, it's these types of these moments along the way that it's kind of led me to see, oh, actually, the real Niiamah is even bigger than what people think. You know, the real Niiamah has more going on than just like the happiness there. He's angry. I didn't know how to express anger. Like, I didn't know. Now and then, I don't know how to express it, and didn't feel safe. It was very unsafe to do that. So I would say that the major turning point for me was watching that documentary, but at the same time, yes, it set me down the path, but I've been learning the trials and tribulations along the way of just how much how much was involved in the inner journey that was there, because I knew where the destination was, and I had thought I had already arrived, and I was so far away from it. And I'm still on that journey right now.
That's fantastic. And, you know, something that came to mind when you were saying about the 2-3%.
Yeah.
You know, if we leave everything else aside and we look at the 2-3%, for me, it is a percentage of people that stand out. And I actually, you know, when you talk about the majority and the 5% or the 1% or the 2-3 that you say, it's actually many people aspire, many people who are into personal growth and want to do something meaningful with their life anyway, aspire to be in that 3% or 1%. And it's very interesting to see it from the other point of view, that people who are in the 2-3% think that I wish I was in the 97%, and I suppose you understand how I mean it, but I wanted your thoughts really on this fear of that people have of standing out, that fear of being outed as different, being pointed at and saying, well, you are not like us. Can you tell me your thoughts and what do you think about this fear?
Yeah,
it's very prominent, and I think it's something I would love your opinions about.
I would absolutely love to. I want to firstly just thank you for pointing out that 2 to 3%. You got me. You can't see this here, but I've been leaning back, stroking my chin, like, oh wow, that's actually a really, really interesting point. Okay, there's things that I've seen from working with my clients, so I work with top performers. I work with people who easily can be in the top 2 to 3% in anything that they do, and that fear of being different, and fear of standing out. Let's also call out the other side of it, the desire to be different, the desire to stand out, right? This is what you're calling out, right? It's like, it's the juxtaposition, the paradox, and the tension of both of those things at the same time. I think it's hard to talk about one without talking about the other right now, because it wouldn't be a complete conversation. It wouldn't be a complete conversation. I think that if I don't, I think I need to frame it in that way. So the fear of standing out, from what I've heard, is a lot of it can be evolutionary. Like the people whose genes continue to get moved down the gene pool weren't the people who decided, I'm going to go out on my own and just like navigate this wild territory alone, and get taken out by a saber-tooth tiger or whatever the danger happened to be at the time, right? The people whose genes continue to proliferate were those who actually stuck together, found ways to work together. So there's a part of it that might be like evolutionarily within us that says, oh, hold on, it is just in order for us to be able to stay safe and continue to move forward, we should have a healthy fear of being alone. I'm going to talk about this now a little bit from just trying to answer this from multiple levels. With the people that I tend to spend a lot of time with, they are themselves their own versions of an outlier. They may be it may not be in the most overt ways, but it's almost like if you took the time to understand their story and to see what it took for them to be there, they're not really supposed to be there. And yet they are, right? And everyone has their version of it, but in some way, shape, or form, they're that lives. And I think that what ends up happening, from what I see with my clients, is there's this thin line between being an outlier and an outsider. Mm-hmm. An outlier, like if you go too far, they might actually discover that you aren't like them. If you go too far, if you let too much of your own light come out of who you are, your own personal experiences, the way that you feel, the different approach that you would take, if you let that come out too much, then all of a sudden, all that you've worked for, the levels that you've finally gotten to where you're respected, and you have the income coming to you, you have the jobs that are looking well, you feel good, at least from what other people said you should feel, all that stuff is there, and you have a livelihood, you have responsibilities to yourself and others. At this point, it all feels like it could just be taken away. Mm-hmm. Should you actually be one who stands out? And I think that's it's something that when I say I'm on the journey, I'm still on it. And this is why I say I fit out, because I've been the center of attention my entire life. I am very, very, very good at getting people to notice me, because my number one fear is being alone, and I am so well practiced at it. What I didn't realize is that the better and better I got at doing the tactics of being alone, the more alone I was feeling. I was almost like more lonely I was feeling, because I was surrounded by people. Like when I would walk down the college campus, when I would walk in my office, everyone knew me. Everyone knew me. But no one really knew me. The way I say it is, I was well known, but I wasn't known well, And I have to call it, I've been getting coaching around this year, because I'm a coach, but I'm also a platform leader, right? And I bring in people to help elevate them as well. And I have my own thought leadership that comes along with it. And when I told someone that my number one fear is being alone, he pointed out something that was just so important in this tension here, which is, you do realize for the impact that you are looking to make in the world, it is a lonely path. It is a lonely path. Being the person who is actually going to change the world at the level that you seek to do is not something that has a lot of other people on the path with you. And as the conversation, that conversation planted a seed, and it got me to realize something. It got me to realize that if I really play this out, if I really want to be me, and if I really believe that it's about removing the marbles and allowing this unique statue that is me to come out in the world, well, what does that mean? That means that out of this whole entire planet of 7 billion people, there's only one of me. Like 1 in 7 billion, that is incredibly lonely. And we have to call that out. On the other side of it, though, is that, and this is what allows me to charge what I charge to my clients. This is what allows me to be called into different organizations and into different conversations in this place. Out of this entire planet, if someone else is trying to find another Niiamah Ashong out there, they have a 1 in 7 billion chance of getting it, of finding them. And that allows me to set my own rates. That allows me to choose my own teams. If it doesn't work for people, that's okay. But if you want what I have to offer, if you want what I'm bringing to the table, it is valuable because you can't find it anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And so I want to make sure that I'm talking about this here, because at the end of the day, yes, it comes with like fear of rejection, fear of not being accepted, fear of being alone. For me, being alone is a fear of it's just I no longer feel safe, you know? And on the other side of it too, juxtaposed with it is like the responsibility that comes with being you and owning that and knowing that. Mm-hmm. And then also the reward that comes along with it. And so I want to make sure that I'm talking about it from a complete perspective, because there's fears in that. There's fears in looking someone in the face and saying, like, it's $50,000 to work with me for a year. And that either that works with you or it doesn't. And allowing that to be the case, you know, to be the one person that's going to speak their truth in the moment. You can see I'm energized by this here, because it's that tension, like being able to be in tension is where like my intentions get to really have a chance to live. That's where the development comes for me. That's where like the mastery element comes in, where it's like, can I find a place where I can be in tension? Can I find a place where there's a paradox and I have a choice to either play the safe route or the courageous route? And if I choose the courageous route, each and every time I've been able to develop. When I've chosen the safe route, each and every time I've been able to maintain what I already had. No growth, may not be any worse, but no growth as well. I'd be curious for you what came out of that. Did I answer your question? Because this is like when I hear that question, I feel like the thing for me is that I feel like if I'm not being complete with it, I'm going to give you like a pop answer. You know, when I say pop, it's like globally accepted. I'm the 2 to 3% club. Like 2 to 3% of people out there might understand what I just said, but for that group, it's important.
There are two observations that came to mind. One, and just mentioned it, the 2-3%. By definition, being in the 2-3% means that you can't be like the 97%, and there's nothing wrong with that, unless you want to be like that. So it is what it is, and if you try to dim yourself, as I read somewhere you use that phrase, to dim your glow to match other people, then there is a very huge price to pay, and probably it's the biggest price of all, which is your own authenticity, your own purpose, if you want, to this existence. So if you are if you have the privilege, shall we say, of being in a small percentage of people, and don't get me wrong, each of us is unique, but because of social conditioning or other reasons, many people choose to go with the majority, because it's in many ways it's easier. You don't have to take responsibility for presenting an opinion that is not necessarily mainstream. So you have to defend yourself against lots of other people, and that takes courage. But if that's who you are, I think it is our duty, and I'm saying our because I know that I am in a similar, and I believe that the listener and someone who really relates to the conversation will see themselves in, 2-3% doesn't mean in specific 2-3% of skin color or anything, or intelligence. It is 2-3% of whatever it is that you belong in a minority, that you're good at, that you're different from. And I kind of lost track of what I was saying, but
this is exactly is the track, though.
Yeah,
it is that. And like, I'm getting goosebumps here. I thank you, because I know that the amount of preparation that you put into this conversation. I know that, like, we talked beforehand, like, you're like, let me do this in a way that helps us stay structured and can move the conversation forward. And I look at it as a sign of transformation and growth. This is about personal development, right? And the moments when things get messy, the moments where we put our foot down and we lose our track, is because we weren't on the path that we came in. Like, if you're going down and you're saying these things to me, like, that makes me feel like, okay, this is not a conversation about personal development mastery. This is a conversation where we are practicing it in both of our ways here. We are practicing it in different ways. I'm this whole conversation, I'm asking myself, am I talking too much? Am I too much is my thing? Am I talking too much? Am I too energized right now? Like, is this, like, all that is playing out? And it's part of why I'm choosing to be in the conversation with you this way. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate seeing you also along your journey of your own mastery. And there's something for me, I think you just really nailed it. Anyone who's listening to this here, I have to ask the question, why? Why personal development mastery? It's different to go down the personal development or self-growth path or self-help. Like, those are all, they all have their place. But for some of us, and I think a lot of us that choose to keep going down the path of growth, there's a reason why. There's a reason why. And it is important to call that out, because if we're going to have any chance of stepping into that greatness that we know, and this is my assumption, but there's a part of us that knows that there's greatness within us. There's actually a part of us there where greatness is living out in the world, but there's this hidden thing that's like, but they don't even know, or this isn't it. This isn't what my legacy should be. I haven't even made my impact. There's something else out there. And it just feels just really important to just call out, like, and acknowledge you, and thank you for creating a space where we can both play in moving down further our own personal development journey, rather than just talking about the journey itself. I really see you, and I don't think I appreciate that you create that space and that you yourself go through it.
Thank you. There is a topic that I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't have a quick discussion. I mean, it's a big topic, and we could probably speak an hour about this, but I want your thoughts about the racial stigma, or the way that some people see other people, especially for things like the color of the skin, which, for me, it is like criticizing someone because they are blonde, or they have black hair or red hair. I mean, for me, it's no different. But if I know it's a big topic, and I don't want to necessarily take the conversation there for long, but could you just offer your thoughts of maybe why this is happening, and is there any simple way of people to transcend these limitations of seeing someone as a man of color, or a man who is white, or a man who is red, or whatever else, and just try to see everyone as like human beings, brothers and sisters, as we are?
So thank you for asking that question. It is a big question, and one that I think of a lot. so for me, I have the race, sexual orientation, religion, all those different things, all the things that tend to divide us. Mm-hmm. I'm someone that looks for what's at the core. And the shortest answer that I can think of here is, as humans, we are designed to find and group ourselves, you know? And if that's the case, like, just playing this out logically, I went to the Olympics once, and it wasn't about what your skin color was. It was about what country you're in, you know? Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter. Like, we might have been in an argument in a grocery store in the US, but when we're out in Brazil and we're all in the Olympics, if you're wearing a USA shirt, you're one of us, right? And so that really got me thinking, like, this whole thing is just completely made up. It's completely made up based on where you are at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I asked myself the question, how does this play out? We might, if today I could snap my fingers and we could take care of the racial issues, the sexual orientation issues, all those different things, and we could just, like, everything that we would have problems with right now, if they were all wiped clean, we would find something new. It would become the blonde stuff. It would become the, hey, how tall are you? Or, like, there's so many different, we are going to keep finding different ways to group ourselves. So the solution that I have here is it's actually very counterintuitive. And it is probably the opposite of what everyone else would say. What I would say is this: stop looking for commonalities. Stop looking to say, how are me and you the same? It is a path that only leads to grouping and divisiveness. Instead, and this is there's a slight, there's probably one or two word difference here. Instead, celebrate and value people's differences. Celebrate and value people's differences. I did not say accept people's differences. I did not say tolerate their differences. Celebrate and value. Go out of your way to figure out what makes this person special and celebrate that, value it. Oh, Agi, because of the journey that you've been on, now we have this opportunity to come in there. We have a whole new set of possibilities have become available to us. Help people belong. Right, because we're talking fitting in and fitting out. The space that we're really looking for is not fitting in or fitting out. It's to belong. It's to belong to ourselves and to belong with others. Never belong to others, belong with others. And so the core, like, we're talking purpose. What is this whole thing about? For me, I know my big purpose in the world, my soul's purpose, is to bring together a truly inclusive and empowered world. And I do that by championing the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. We are at this inflection point right here. And we can either say that the path forward is to try and say, how alike are you? Oh, are we like-minded? Oh, that's one of the most dangerous words that I've heard. One of the most dangerous words, like-minded. I know for me, I'm like, that is a space I do not want to be a part of. I just want to get like-minded people together. Ooh, count me out. Count me out. That is a recipe for danger and not safe. And because you're looking to see, do we think the same? And though you don't think the same as me, you're out. I thought it was about different-minded, but now I'm realizing I don't even know if it's that. I think it's just open-minded. I just want to be in spaces with open-minded people. And the way that I can play this out, I play this out here with this one question. I call it the Martian test. You talked about this, like, looking at each other as humans and being each other's brothers and sisters. I take it a step further. I just keep going with. I'm like, if this is a universal truth, it should work in every single situation. And if you get to say but, then it's not. Then you haven't found it. You know, E equals MC squared. It is that E sometimes is approximately no. It is. You know, it's that simple. And so for me, I look at this thing called the Martian test, which is whatever approach you think that you're going to take to create a more inclusive environment there. If an alien from some outer world planet showed up at your doorstep tomorrow and you were the first person to interact with this alien, would that alien feel included by the approach that you take? And that is why I'm like, can you possibly find any similarities with a completely foreign, like, alien? You can't. So, like, to me, that I'm like that's not the path to go down. But if that alien showed up on my doorstep, I'm like, oh, how did you get here? You're not supposed to be here. What did you learn? What information do you have? What technology do you have? How do you think about things? How do you like think about your language? What do you like? All this stuff, curiosity, wonder, and appreciating the things that we don't have, the things that are different from us. That to me has been the only path that I could see to actually giving us a chance, because no matter what, we will find out what is different. We are great. We are better at finding out what is different than we are at finding out what is the same. So let us use that tool to our advantage as opposed to using it to our destruction. That's what feels real for me.
You know, that's it really made me think what you said about the Martian test, and you're so right. But on a light side, if that Martian or that extraterrestrial came and knocked on my door, I'm sure I would do a very epic podcast interview with him or her. And it would be hours and hours. It would be legendary.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's it. Like, that is it. Like, to know that you can bring that to the table, you know? And that would be a contribution. And what I also get about you is that you're really good at making people and helping people explore more themselves, helping them feel comfortable to share. You're bringing your gift to the table here, and in doing so, you're also sharing that person's gift. I think it would be a legendary podcast. The world would be tuning into that.
I had never thought of that before, but now you've gave me this. Who knows? There is quite a lot recently that has been talked about aliens, so you never know.
Yeah. Well, I think I love that this is where your mind went to first, right? And so let me be in the practice of this myself. I like to celebrate and value you here. And it's not the podcasting happens to be a platform, a medium in which you can do this. But what I want to celebrate and value is like your ability to like see and ask inquisitive questions that get to the heart of things, get to the core of things, and allow people to be able to be seen. This whole world is starving to be seen. If we're talking anything about fitting in, fitting out, it is just about, can I really be seen and appreciated for who I am, for what comes from that. And I think that your ability to see others and to give them a platform in which to be seen is quite unparalleled. And I want to just really acknowledge you on that. I thank you for bringing that to the table. Like, it is something, you do it in a way that is completely different to me. And I appreciate you for it. And I now know, like, oh, if things happen in life and I need someone to help me bring in the extraterrestrial, or to like help me actually just help. In a sense, I think sometimes we all feel like that alien even in our own families, you know, like, I know I can call on you. So I just wanted to say thank you for being an example of that and living that in this conversation.
My pleasure. And thank you for giving me some interesting ideas which I hadn't thought before. Niiamah, I would like to, it's a truly fascinating conversation. I'm sure we could go on for much longer. I would like to ask some quick fire questions as well to start wrapping things up. And the first one I always ask, and even though you've kind of touched upon it from an angle, but I wanted you to tell me, what do you think, what does the term personal development mean to you?
In a word, transformation, integrity, and ownership. Those are the three words of what that means to me.
And the next one I'm very curious about. If you could go back in time and meet your 18 or 16-year-old self, what's the one piece of advice you would give him?
I would go back in time. I would see my 18 or 16-year-old self, and I would say nothing. I would say absolutely nothing. There are lessons that person needs to learn. And I know where I'm at. I'm talking to you on this conversation. I know how I'm showing up here. And I don't think I could have shortcutted that to this level of understanding here. So I would be there. I think I would just love on them from afar, you know, send my well wishes. maybe leave some money for when things got a little tight, you know. But in all honesty, I wouldn't go back and change anything because I see where I am now, and I don't think that there's a level of appreciation that I needed to have to be able to go through it. Yeah.
Fantastic. And tell me, emerging from this conversation that we've had, if you were to give to the listener one actionable item that they can start implementing and grow, improve, or what would that be?
I think from this conversation, what it would be for me is to actually just spend the next week focused on celebrating and appreciating the differences of people around you. In any case where you find yourself looking to say, what do we have in common? Choose to be the courageous one that says, actually, let's leave that alone. I want to get to know more about you and see what's different about you, because now there are new opportunities. So and it's important to me. I tend to, when it comes to actions, I tend to look at practices because I only play the transformation game, right? And the reason I say take the next week is I don't care how someone does it. We're each going to have our different ways of showing appreciation. Maybe it's inviting them onto a podcast. Maybe it's writing them a poem. Maybe it's telling them something that about themselves, about seeing them on the inside. But the act of doing this, the practice of doing this, the reason I say this here is that I have found that the more that I go out to see other people, the more that I am able to see myself. And if we're talking personal development mastery, your ability to see and understand yourself as you truly are is the guiding post to what comes next. So that's where I would lean toward, and find those moments where you find yourself in tension, and then get intentional about it, because that's where the next largest sets of growth will come for you.
That's an exceptional answer. Thank you for that. And I think I'm going to highlight that in the when I put the show notes and everything together. I really appreciate you saying that. Can you share how can people connect with you, find out more about what you do and this kind of stuff?
Absolutely. So the easiest way is to go send me an email. I like to talk to people. I like to be in conversation. So I think you can send me an email at 𝗚𝗂𝗚@niiamahashong.com. I think that'll be in the show notes, but
it will be. Otherwise, it's quite unusual as a spelling.
Quite unusual. Yeah, Niiamah is Niiamah, right? I'm on YouTube. You'll see me actually coach people live. That's what I do. I don't like to talk about this as theories. I like to give people a chance to actually see the work and transformation in place with other people where they might have felt like they were alone, to just see how powerful it can be to do that. I'm thinking here, maybe you and I can talk after this here to see if there's anything that would be meaningful in terms of either a conversation or, like I said, a conversation that I can organize for people here as well. Because I think that, I think it's that for me, the part of it is let's get in a conversation and let's give you a chance to practice. And I'm exceptional at creating spaces for people to utilize a safety in order to be courageous. That's what I do. So we should talk about this here. I'd love to find a way to really support your people.
Thank you. That's sure. I'm grateful for that. I just realized that there were so many things that we talked about. I have the feeling that there are easily 2 or 3 times as much that we could go on, and maybe at some point we can revisit some of the topics and go even deeper, because you mentioned the mastery element quite a few times, and sometimes it's difficult to go deep enough in the space of 1 hour, especially when we have, a broad range of topics. If we were talking about just one thing, maybe we could drill down quite a lot in an hour, but we talked about, all sorts of things. So I will, let's arrange at some point in the future and do a sequel to this and go even deeper.
I would thoroughly enjoy that. I realize why mastery has been so important to me. When I reach out to people to join my team, I'm like, you must be a master at this. I don't say and I use that very distinctly from expert. So I appreciate that it's not about expertise, because there's a level of mastery that goes beyond it, that needs that depth beyond just knowing what to do. It's that level of, will you personally be able to implement it? Mm-hmm. So I will certainly welcome a conversation, ongoing conversations about this here. I'm curious what people think and like where their questions go as well, so we can just find ways to really serve.
Amazing. Niiamah, I want to thank you very much. This has been an exceptionally intriguing conversation for me. There were, points that you directed the conversation in areas that I was not necessarily had prepared to go, and I really appreciated that, because it was you gave me some elements that were very useful in my own process of thinking. So I want to thank you again for your offer, and we will discuss about that.
Would you mind if I ask one more courageous question?
Of course. Yes, sure.
Yeah, just like for me, and this is to help me see how. Just to help us integrate from here. You said there's helping you think about things. Can you share with me what's been your greatest insight or your greatest question or the thing that's annoyed you the most in this conversation? Can you share with me
there was nothing that annoyed me. Okay. I would be lying if I said something annoyed me. I liked very much that concept of fitting out, which I had never heard before, and it is something that requires some contemplation about how can fitting out. I had never heard of the phrase before, so it's very intriguing. And what you said towards the end about the Martian test, that was very, let's say, expansive of my way of thinking, because up to that moment I was thinking of humanity, human beings, but we're only one tiny speck of dust in the whole universe, so there is so much more there. And it was great to expand the thinking that whoever it is, wherever they are coming from, they still are created like we are, so there is something in common right from the beginning. So nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to wish you all the very best. It has been a real delight to speak with you today. Any last parting words?
I'm just really grateful that you are on your journey, that you've chosen the path of mastery as well. Mm-hmm. I think what you're doing is really important, and I look forward to ongoing conversations and to have a fellow peer that's on the mastery journey.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and rate Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts, and also share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to become part of an exclusive community, gain access to unique content, and at the same time support this podcast, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpat. If you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. Again, the link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/pdmgroup. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in,